I destroyed an entire tow company with one phone call. Several years back I went to work for a towing company. It's about all I know how to do other than paint cars, which is drastically affecting my health. The pay was pretty decent, but we had to share trucks and the boss felt that he knew where we needed to sit in order to get the best calls. This is important for later. Several months in, I realized that I was not making the type of money that I should be making. So I took the opportunity, while I was sitting in a parking lot one evening, to start researching the laws pertaining to employees in similar positions. He was kind of an a-hole and the trucks had transponders, so that he could see if we had them idling with the air conditioner on a hot day, or idling with the heat on a cold day. He was always calling complaining about something, if the wheels were not turning. During my research I discovered that if he was requiring us to sit in a certain parking lot, street, or any location of his choosing, then we were entitled to be paid an hourly wage, not just our commission. The technical term was engaged to wait. However, if he allowed us to freely roam about while we waited for calls, we were not entitled to hourly wages and we were therefore considered waiting to be engaged. I never mentioned this to him, but I did start taking note of my time. Another month or so goes by, and he decided to start coming down on me for tiny little BS. Things that ordinarily wouldn't even matter, such as I forgot a pop can in the cup holder. He actually had a screaming fit about that. At this point I was tired of working there, and had already found another job, so I decided it was time to put my plan into motion. I called him up, told him that we needed to have a conversation about my final wages, and that we could meet at his convenience. Upon entering the office I laid out my argument, explained the state law, and told him I expected to be paid for the hours that I was on the clock, but not freely allowed to roam looking for work or able to do things of my choosing. He told me in no uncertain terms would not be paid for that time, as that was agreed to upon my employment. I did not bother to argue, as I already had my next step planned, so I took my final check and I left. The following Monday, I made a phone call to the state labor board, where I laid out my case to them. Needless to say, they were very interested in what was going on. In the end, they came to review his employment records and speak to the driver still working. When he got the bill of what he had to pay us all, it was too much for him to afford, so he sold the trucks, his boat, and lot and went out of business. I never got the money owed to me in full, only a fraction. But the satisfaction of knowing the law just a little bit better than he did, and watching it all burn was pure bliss. My story starts off as mundane as anybody's. 5 years into working for an enormous corporation, my group was reorged. This particular reorg was, like most efforts, a half-baked idea ginned up by a suit in a corner office, questionably planned, poorly executed and terribly communicated. Nonetheless, I was sent from my old group to a brand new, to me, group managed by Jim. Jim seemed an okay fellow, with a dry sense of humor and a British accent, that lulled me into thinking he was a decent guy. Working for Jim was okay. He was never available, and when we did meet maybe once a month he'd bark off a list of things for me to do, then say he had a conflict, and had to go to another call. I was floundering a little, but felt I had a handle on things. During my first annual review via phone, Jim offered up vanilla platitudes about how things were going well, while I heard him distractedly typing away at items from people pinging him. He paused when he got to my salary and hedged a bit. So I got you a small increase. I couldn't get you much. To be frank, I'm not going to question how anyone arrives at their salary level, but you make way more than the other people on my team. It was awkward, but not the first time I've had such a pointed salary discussion with a male manager. It's never been a talking point with any of the women who managed me, and I wondered if he would have made those comments to me if I were a man. I've managed teams over the years, and noticed the women on my teams seem to make less than their male counterparts, so I get him an anomaly. But, I'm a high performer in a 25-year uninterrupted career, as I never chose to have children. I've worked hard for my salary and am proud of it. I could get hired elsewhere at this salary in my market easily given my experience, qualifications, and certifications. Shortly after our review, Jim moved on to work with my primary group of business partners, leaving me with no manager, just a 2-up manager who'd never met or spoken to, and that's when the crap hit the fan. Unbeknownst to me at the time, my salary was brought up in a discussion with his new team, the fine ladies who were managers of the teams I worked with in my business partner group. As it's been relayed to me, Jim didn't blurt out the specific details of course, but when one of the women complained about something I'd done, Jim said he was surprised there were issues because I was the highest paid person on his, now former, team. He poisoned the well quite nicely for me. Going back through my emails I could pinpoint the date and time the remark was said, because the tone of every single one of those managers changed, as if on a dime. If I asked a question, I was berated because, "You're our most senior analyst. You should know that." Documentation that had sufficed before was suddenly all wrong. There were two particularly hostile culprits, Pat, who managed reporting on the systems we were migrating, and her underling PM, Wanda. Pat came at me quick, fangs bared, with a demand that I put together a plan to get us to the next generation of reporting which wasn't due to be released until 2021. The 2021 plan Wanda, her PM had put together, looked like notes on a greasy cocktail napkin, so Pat decided that, since I was the SME, I should do Wanda's work for her instead. Pat wanted a plan from today, in 2019 through to the date of release in May 2021. According to her it had to include all the tasks needed for delivery right from the start, which is not how planning works. I can't predict the future, so my plans usually start out detailed in the near term, with increasingly wider swaths of more generalized tasks, to be elaborated in detail as we get further along. This is an industry standard approach, and was never a problem, right up until it was. Pat started hounding me relentlessly to get this full plan done for her in 5 days, which would have been an impossible task under the best of circumstances. Nonetheless, I put together a 2,000-line long plan, working evenings and over the weekend, because my arms had been in pain for several months from typing at my home office, and I had to take frequent breaks from the pain. Note, I had been made a remote employee against my will, and when I was reorged I started asking for a desk back at work. Jim always dismissed my request, saying there was no space, so I spent over $1,500 on an ergonomic chair and desk for my home to make typing easier, but my arms still hurt anytime I sat at the keyboard for more than a half hour. I had to backburner my more immediate, pressing work for upcoming releases in the next couple of months, because Pat told me I had to prioritize her work over everything else. I had no manager to help redirect my priorities back to my other work, and when I tried to say it would have to wait until I finished my more pressing work, Pat sighed and bitterly said in front of a half dozen people including Wanda, "So you're our most senior SME and you're telling me you can't do the work?" Pat then decided to up the ante by insisting I run every element of the plan I was creating for Wanda by Wanda, a junior level PM who not only didn't understand the systems we were using, I had to tell her how to create her own status reports, but wrote at a 3rd grade level. Even subject verb agreement is out of Wanda's grasp. But she had a chip on her shoulder and now she believed she could tell me what to do and how to do it. It was like a teacup poodle trying to guide a Rottweiler. Wanda was immediately and clearly out of her element, and obviously so. As a result, every single time she was caught f***ing up, she threw me right under the bus. She'd preemptively throw me under the bus too. Wanda's only talent was deflecting blame and painting herself as the victim. I didn't know what to do. I was having anxiety attacks. My heart would start racing to 145 BPM on the couch at night when I started thinking about work. I was overwhelmed and my arms were killing me, and then the unthinkable happened. My mom suddenly died. When I told the team, they were not only completely unsympathetic, they were pissed. I had to take a week of bereavement and this too pissed them off as I was leaving the day before the deadline Pat had given me to finish Wanda's plan for the 2021 project. Instead of packing for the funeral or connecting with my family, I spent the 3 days before my leave working late nights trying to finish the plan. We met at 5 PM the day before I was to go on leave, where Pat and Wanda ripped into my plan and said they would work with another team member to fix all of my mistakes in the week I was gone. Finally free of the evil twins, I went on leave. And while on leave, my arm stopped hurting. After 6 weeks of physical therapy for my arm problems, just not typing for a while helped immensely. I had 2 days left before I had to go back to the hellhole, and I was dreading it. When the heart palpitations started up again, I knew I couldn't go back. At first, I decided I would just quit the day I was supposed to return. I didn't want to even give them 2 weeks notice. I hated them so much. They had been so cruel about me taking bereavement leave. I wanted to F them over, good and proper. No 2 weeks notice meant it'd leave them hanging for their near-term releases that had not been allowed to finish up my work for, as well as for the 2021 plan. And if I burned a bridge or my reputation, so what? I'm nearing the age where people usually retire or have a major career change. I don't need to keep that bridge any longer. I have saved up enough, and damn it, my health was more important to me than these toxic people or my paycheck. The night I decided to quit, I went to sleep relieved and not anxious. For the first time in 6 months, I felt the anxiety leaving me, knowing I wouldn't have to work with those people ever again. It felt like a solid plan. Then the next morning I woke up with a plan even more brilliant. It checked all my boxes. I wouldn't have to go back to work. I wouldn't have to give 2 weeks notice, so they'd still be fed. I would still get paid. And I would be able to take care of my arms that had been in pain for so long. And while limited, manage the anxiety that had spiraled out of control because of my hostile coworkers. My new and improved plan was simple: take medical leave. I needed protected medical leave in the form of FMLA, which for those not in the US, provides up to 12 weeks of leave where my specific job role and salary must be protected and available to me upon my return. And because it was medical leave, I was automatically enrolled in short-term disability, for which my company will pay 100% of my salary for 8 weeks, and then 65% of my salary for the remaining weeks I'm out. The best part of this plan is it FS over all the people I want to F over, and it's all 100% legit. I had been having problems keeping up at work because of all the doctor's visits I had for my arms, physical therapy, regular therapy for my anxiety that had gotten out of control, and a psychiatrist. My health issues were eating into my workday, causing me to have to work early mornings, nights and weekends more than ever, and no doubt pissing off these people who thought I was making too much money to be deserving of any time off for doctor's appointments. My team got a new manager after 6 weeks, coincidentally just the day before I was to come back from bereavement. I was sneakily logged onto work every day to catch his name, and I stealthily dialed into the conference call where he was introduced to the team. My 2-up manager, that I've never spoken to, even said at the outset, "I think we have everyone on the bridge. This job is gonna kill, won't be here, on bereavement." I called up the administrators of our FMLA and short-term disability plans to file my claim. I got the forms and figured out which of my half-dozen doctors had to fill what out. My orthopedist signed me off for 12 weeks of absence straight away because she noted I'd been in pain since May, so it would likely take a while to heal. After talking with her, my PT and my psychiatrist, I will likely do physical therapy for 6 weeks and then enroll in a program for anxiety and stress management for the remaining 6 weeks before returning. All covered by my insurance and all free because I met my out-of-pocket maximum halfway through the year due to a hospital stay for a different medical issue. The night before I was due back, I sat there grinning while looking at the next morning's 8 AM calendar invite from Wanda. In her illiterate fashion she had written, "It is important all crucial partners makes every effort to attend this call." Like most of Wanda's obnoxiously illiterate declarations, it was a dig at me because it said in my last call with her and Pat that I might not be able to log on until 9 AM on the day I returned from leave. I opened a new window and typed out to my new manager, "Dear Phil, I hate that this is our first introduction to each other, but while I was attending my mother's funeral an ongoing medical issue resurfaced and I need to take medical leave immediately." I went on to inform him I'd been hospitalized a couple months back and there were other issues that were preventing me from returning to work, and he could get the details from my prior manager Jim. Not that Jim paid a damn bit of attention to the emails I sent him detailing my doctor's visits, etc. even as he had moved on from being my manager, because I still had to let him know about all my absences until I got a new manager. As things got worse at work, I became more clear in my details about my pain with typing getting worse, hoping it might make Jim realize the situation was getting worse, but he never listened. So here I sit on a beautiful fall Friday morning, getting paid 100% of my salary to write this. Jim wasn't happy about my salary when I was working for him. I wonder how happy he is about my salary knowing him not having to work for it right now. When I return, I won't be on the 2 projects with upcoming releases. One will have already released. The other will release less than 4 weeks after I come back. So they're fed on that. I wonder if they've figured out the test documents for November haven't been signed off yet. I was supposed to finalize them for sign-off, but Pat forced me to prioritize Wandas 2021 project over the November work, so the test documents are still sitting locally on my work desktop, under shade. I will also be returning with a requirement for accommodations, which I'm now entitled to as I've learned I qualify for them under the ADA. No more telling me I have to work from home or hunch over a table in the break room if I want to be in the office. I'm working with an occupational therapist to draft up what those accommodations will be, but a height adjustable desk, 2 large monitors, and a distraction-free workspace are the top line requirements. Meanwhile, my treatment plans include exercise, trail walks, both regular therapy and physical therapy, and a weekly massage as well. I've added in long visits to the library to read all the books I've been wanting to catch up on, and nice lunches a couple times a week to the mix. Several times throughout the day I'll look at my watch while walking the trails with my dog or just relaxing, and I smile broadly thinking about Pat and Wanda's important project plan for 2021. Wonder what poor sod thief roped in to help her finish it now. I still may just quit right after I return, or they can just fire me. I'd be indifferent about that. But at least this way I'll have milked 12 more weeks of payout of these a-holes, while benefiting from all the free medical and emotional assistance my insurance plan can buy. They say living well is the best revenge, and I can't think of a company or a group of people who deserve my ProRevenge more. Thank you for watching. Slap that like button and comment your opinion on these stories below. I'm waiting. Write that comment. Seriously. Have you written it yet? If you don't comment, you make a bunny cry somewhere. You're not that kind of person, I know. Anyways, peace out, and catch you tomorrow.